Hold on. So,
Wait.
We're already live. I'm sorry.
Let's stall a bit until he fixes the thing.
Okay. We today will be starting momentarily on the topic of, is pressure necessary to do good work? Here on Unlearning Labels, we like to have conversations to unlearn the way we operate in the workplace. And so one of the status quos is everybody operates better under pressure. And so let's question that.
Yeah, let's do that. Do we want to, you're recording now, yeah?
we're all good to go.
Okay, so we can officially start the session
Okay.
if you want.
We are officially starting.
Sorry
You
about
get to
that.
see a little bit of the behind the scenes today. So welcome to Unlearning Labels. Today we're discussing, is pressure necessary to do good work? So personally, actually, there was already some discussion going on. Someone had commented last night and said that pressure can be an encouragement, right? And then on the flip side, I think near the end of their comment, they said something about, whether or not it's actually necessary, that part they do, they question that part as well. So what are your thoughts on that, Peter?
Well, there's two types of pressure I see in the workplace. There's pressure that's created by the workplace itself and by bosses and by your peers and by other employees. And then there's personal pressure where we make the pressure up in our own head. And at some time, at some points in my career, I had both. I had pressure from above, from my boss, pressure from other people in my team, but also I created pressure for myself. So we can really make our lives really difficult for no reason quite often. And yeah, you may or may not be able to control or remove the pressure that comes from the business or your colleagues or your boss, but quite often, or at least in the work that we do, Cordelia, I don't know about you and your experience with, coaching leaders as well, is that a lot of the times the pressure that's coming from the person internally is usually the most destructive, or at least that's been our experience.
Well, yeah. What I see in terms of performance, what I see in terms of making good decisions, what I see in terms of solving problems, is that when we have a clear head, when we are not under pressure, we make better decisions, our performance is better, we get into flow, we go to, there's so many things that are connected with clear mind. And yet, I think that this pressure equals good work or the good output. I think it's really, really created in the past when we started with factory work, when we started with, putting pressure on people to deliver certain things. And then it stayed. And I think it's a belief system that looks really real to us, looks really real to me. When I think that something, when I'm under stress, when I'm scared of something, I put pressure on myself in order to do certain things. And then half of the times afterwards, they actually didn't really need to be done, But then we create more work for ourselves. And whenever I feel myself under pressure, feeling of urgency, needing to do things yesterday, it is a trick of a mind, and it's not really, really what is required, and that creates more work for myself. So I think I think that now when I'm saying it out loud, it looks like pressure equals work, and we get paid for work. We don't get paid in factory work world. We didn't get paid for the results. We get paid for the amount of work that we are doing. So the amount of work, the amount of time we spend working, and in order for that to count, we need to be, and so it's interesting that, how much weight and how much history it is in that idea that we have all taken on ourselves with the pressure. And I just saw the comment that was over there as well, Cordelia, that you put up. Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's, I like how both you and Peter have defined, what our definition of pressure is, and then going into the history of it, and so, and one of our watchers is saying pressure can be intimidating if coming from the wrong place or people, which, again, goes back to what you were saying, Peter, from it being external pressure. So we've identified that we've got the internal pressure, like to perform and to do something, to act, right? And then we have the external pressure coming from management. And then we have that history of management believing that that is the way they get the best work out of their employees from the factory days model, right? Although there are very few factories, well, that's not true, but there's fewer factories in the Western world than there were, right, previously, where the whole ideal comes from. And actually my mind even goes back to further, than factory days, like right before the industrial age, right? We had an agricultural society where there was pressure to harvest, products. And not that we don't have an agricultural society, nor do we have forms of slavery anymore. But I mean, it definitely, all of this alludes to that ideal of the only way to get good work is to pressurize the situation. And fully, we know that that's not true. The best way to get good work is to have the well-being of your team and each individual in the highest standard. But before we just go ahead and just tell everyone that this is the truth, let's examine it a little bit more.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's good what you said there, because pressure doesn't really equal productivity. And what Mira said, pointing to results. The modern workplace, the one that's inclusive, the one that's really going to get results day after day, and also crucially has happy people who've got trust, high trust, the psychological safety, you can see that it's naturally occurring, are the places where there isn't really pressure required. Pressure doesn't make sense when you've got high trust, when you all work towards the results. And my goal for the work that we do is to instill that into every leader, that if you want to get the best results and you want to have sustainable results, not like results are 1 minute you're completely smashing it and you're knocking it out of the park, and the next day it's completely the opposite. Because you can't really sustain pressure. I don't know if you've ever thought about that, but Mira and I spent years working for other people, and also the years that we've, as you have, as well as a coach, looking at, why do certain people pressure? Why do leaders feel uncomfortable? And usually the pressure to drive someone to do more than they should be doing, or to try and push them over a cliff, again, it stems back to how safe do you feel as a leader individually? Are you in a fearful place? Are you uncomfortable? And quite often when we see teams being micromanaged, it's because the leader themselves or the leadership team are not comfortable in their own skin. And that leads to their own internal pressure and battles going on. And it leads to a lack of clarity. And then, as I pointed to, it leads to teams being pushed and pulled in the wrong direction. And then, no surprise, you wonder why there's high sickness, there's not enough engagement and people go off the boil, and it's really difficult then to be able to manage people because there's low trust, because I don't know about you, if I'm really pushed and pressured and someone's got the finger on me or they're constantly looking over my shoulder, it's really difficult to do my best work because I just don't feel safe. I don't feel trusted to be able to do what I'm good at.
But you know what also comes to mind, Cordelia? This pressure that we feel, and it usually comes with fear, like internal pressure, to be more specific. It comes with fear. It comes with fear I won't be able to do it properly, or I won't, there's some fear of survival in the future, or what may happen in the future, usually fear of the future. And it comes with really, painful feeling, because pressure over time becomes pain. You have tight shoes, they create pressure, and then you get a blister and it's painful. And it's and then we try to avoid pain. I mean, I was thinking about it this morning. We had a session with one of our clients, and I was thinking about it. Whenever in the past I was under lots of pressure, I was trying to avoid it. And I think it's very natural because it takes too much energy. And then I was making decisions based on that, based on avoiding the feeling, because again, pressure equals pain at some point. So you wanna like, who would like to feel pain? It's the feeling that we wanna go away from. So, when I just want to, I want to do it quickly. I want to just get rid of it and do something else. Or it can also be a procrastination. I'm avoiding to do the thing that is causing me lots of pressure. And again, talking from the point of internal pressure, but also, if somebody puts a pressure on you, you don't want to do it, or you would just want to do it quickly.
I want to touch on what you said there. I mean, yeah, if you pressure people, the subtotal of that will be work avoidance. And we see this in organizations, both, large and small and medium, whatever size, that when people are pressured and pushed too far, you hear leaders going, I'm confused, they're not being productive anymore. What am I doing wrong? And it's like, well, yeah, take your foot off the gas. Start to reflect on, have you pushed your people way too far? Are they feeling squeezed? Do they feel burnt out and stressed? Are they showing signs of low mental health? And then that might give you an indication of what's happening,
Yeah, as you're talking about trust, and my mind goes back to the communication that we've talked about so often, right, in this show, is that when you have a certain level of understanding and communication within the team, then the level of trust goes up and the need for pressure is alleviated. It's unnecessary. And everybody already knows, what's the flow of energy, or the flow of what's necessary to get done. And that allows everyone to slow down, right? Because as Mira was saying, there's an element of anxiety that comes into play with the pressure, right? But then if you slow down, there's no anxiety because we're not worried about, the future. We're not worried about a judgment, from past performance or any of that. It's just, you feel whole and true enough to show up completely, in your full capacity.
I want to point to what you said there, Cordelia. It's interesting. You said about slowing down, right? And I totally resonate with that, because when you say to a company, you must slow down, it's quite alien to most leaders, because they're like, what do you mean? I want them to be productive. I don't want them to do less. I want them to do more. But what you're pointing to, Cordelia, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that in order to do our best work, in order to get great results, we can't be going too fast. Because when we go too fast and when we're pressured, when there's a high level of stress and anxiety, people make mistakes.
Mm.
And I don't know about you, if someone gave me a choice as a leader, would you like people to do the best work and have less results and less wastage and,
Less
there's
results,
less results, and also there's cost implications if people constantly make mistakes. And that's what we've seen in organizations, that we've worked with, is that when they are squeezed too much and when they go too fast, that's when the wheels come off, and there's a massive cost implication. And there's not just cost, but there's a lot of time to course correct that, and coaching and feedback, versus people who are more reflective, as you said, and slow down. And then they're able to do the work with enough room in there to be able to be productive, but also not to push themselves too far, to take the correct amount of self-care and have breaks, and also to have the safety to say, hey, boss, and that, there's nothing wrong with being busy, and there will be challenges. That's the world of work. It's a reality. But when people are in a high level of trust and people feel safe, they're also able to talk about this stuff openly and say, hey, I think I've gone too, this has been too much. Can we take the foot off the gas a little bit, because I can feel myself really slipping and I don't want to make mistakes? Versus what we've seen is when there's a low level of trust, team members usually cover up their mistakes, and then it can go left for weeks, months. And I've even seen it being left for years in terrible organizations where people have just never really talked about it. And then they wonder where, all the money's gone, all of that profitability's been sucked into the ether,
Yeah, and time is like the one resource that we don't ever get back. And
No.
if you're going to misuse time, it's better to just not use it at all, right? That's the benefit of slowing down. The second benefit is what you alluded to there, which is the bottom line, right? The money won't be wasted, because instead of those people using the time to be productive, right? And they're really just ruminating about something that they don't even know what to do. They could just be at peace and pulling back and just being with the possibility of creating a solution, right? As opposed to just being like a hamster in a what is that? A hamster in a wheel, right?
Yeah.
And what are they doing? Wasting money, wasting time, wasting energy, and destroying the trust and destroying the team.
In appearance of doing something, but you know what's the other thing that is that is now crossing my mind, and it's related to letting go of that belief that in order to be productive and in order to create results, in order to do things in time, that we need to be under pressure. It needs to be hard, it needs to be a certain way, it needs to be specific, and all of that. Specific goals create pressure, for example, and like there's so many things that we can look into individually in order to see what adds to the pressure. But the other thing is us individually allowing that pressure to reduce, slow down that heat in a pressure cooker. And it's not easy, because we are so used to, we live in a society that has this belief. If I let go of stress, if I let go of pressure, something is going to slip up. I won't be in control of everything. Something bad is going to happen. And that's, I think, one of the things that we need to be examining at the same time.
And you know what we quite often ask our clients when we slow them down, because usually there's, in senior leadership positions, we get curious and we say to them, one of the first questions is, where does your sense of urgency come from? Is it coming from yourself? And again, we don't talk about it like that, but again, I'm just pointing to that, once you get curious, you can see, is it something that we made up as a company and it's a bottleneck, and maybe we can actually address that. So, for example, we see quite often innocently teams that are siloed, they're working against each other instead of with each other. And you'll get one department or team knocking on the door saying, "Hey, I sent you an email this morning at 9 o'clock. I expect a reply by 9:02." And you've got the person in the other team saying, "What the hell? That's a lot of pressure. I've just had a coffee, I can't really answer this." And then in the bigger scheme of things, the question is this really required to be answered? Is it urgent enough that it needs to be looked at straight away? And the problem for many organizations is that no one, when we get them really reflective, no one seems to know where it stemmed from. And that's really curious, right? Because if no one really knows, then therefore it's all made up. And again, there will be times when urgency is required. That's okay. But as long as everyone's on the same page, and what you said before, Cordelia, it goes back to communication. If there's trust, if there's high safety, if there's transparency, and you as a leader say, "Look, my expectation is this is attached with a bit of urgency. So, I've got your back. I don't want to pressure you too much, but we need to get this done by the end of the month," or whatever it is. That's totally fine. And then you can be there and course correct if it doesn't get done, or, if someone needs help, you can support them, etc., etc. Versus what we quite often see when big, companies don't communicate is that everyone's blaming each other. And when you really go back to so is this really true? Where did this come from? And everyone's like, "Isn't it you? Didn't you make up the rules?" And everyone's like, "Nope, it's not in a process. This sense of urgency isn't attached. It's not in the rule book. Where did it come from? Maybe it's coming from myself. Maybe I don't need to knock on the door of my colleague at 9:02 a.m. Maybe I can relax a little bit. Maybe I can actually check in and say, 'Hey, how are you doing?' Rather than, 'Hey, where the hell is that email?'"
Yeah, and it is all made up, really. That's exactly the point. The concept of needing to pressurize a situation, is all made up, when you could also create an environment where everyone is trusted and everyone knows their piece of the puzzle, and when it's time to put, their piece in place. And that is a healthier environment mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, than an environment where it it engenders a kind of friction. So if you're going to make something up, make something that you can all benefit from on all levels.
What just occurred to me? I'm just getting reflective. Thank you. This is a great conversation, both of you. I'm just wondering, I'm really curious, and I don't have the answer, by the way. If we're into a new paradigm where, it's not really about urgency, it's more about results, why are more and more organizations outsourcing the customer service function, their operations, and they're looking at speed versus results? Why is that happening more and more? The more we chat to people outside working for other companies, the more they tell me that they're just stressed and burnt out. And again, they don't seem to know where the source of that's coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. I wonder what would happen if we all allowed ourselves to slow down a little bit and took off our plate for a bit and see priorities, see what is important, and see what are we actually doing. Because it looks to me like nobody's really assessing the situation. We are all just running 100 miles, 100 miles an hour. It's funny for me to speak in miles because
I was just thinking, I saw that metric system glitch.
Maybe I'm under
like
pressure.
miles.
Are you feeling some pressure?
Maybe, I don't know. But see, this is what happens. No, I'm not. I think I was just ahead of myself. I wanted to say about the mental health and how, all that pressure is created because we're not seeing clearly. I remember a few years ago in our leadership development program, I remember one girl that was on the program, she came up into mentoring sessions and said, I've been thinking about my career, and I've been, I need to set some goals, and it needs to be like this, and then I have to do this, and then I have to do this, and I have to do this. I'm like, do you really have to do that? Like, and then she stopped for a moment and she realized that because she felt insecure in the moment, she started looking at her future and it all looked scary. So in order to prevent that scary thing to happen, she started thinking about all these things that she had to do in order to be okay in the future, and then realized that, actually, I don't have to do any of it. I can only just do this and this. And she was like, oh my God, this feels amazing. I'm actually okay.
What a load off, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like what I'm hearing is when you really examine the source of burnout, what is it based on? Is it based on a lack of confidence, or is it based on a lack of skills? Or, is it, how can we remedy this from a well-being perspective, or just a supports perspective,
Yeah.
Well, the question I'd ask myself, or I'd get people to reflect to, if you're watching or listening, is I've forgotten. So I must have felt the pressure.
Yeah, does it matter?
No, it doesn't.
cares?
But I'm curious to know what is that.
What was the question? Is that really true? That's your favorite question?
No, okay, I've got it. Thank you. So what would be the worst that would happen if you just slow down? Because it often looks like, as Mira pointed to before, there's that fear that if we take our foot off the hamster wheel, as you said before,
Yeah.
Cordelia, what, the world's going to end. We'll have a catastrophe. The business will end. Actually, if you don't, you're probably going to have more problems than not putting your foot down and jumping off, even for half an hour. Because again, it's just really digging deep and asking yourself, what is the worst that's going to happen if you just slow down today? You don't have to be a machine, because quite often, I know in my early career, I thought it was an algorithm. I thought I could do everything. I was an invincible. I didn't need to take breaks. I didn't need to rest. And that is so not true. Like it or not, we're biological creatures. We're on a circadian rhythm. We need to eat and sleep well. We need downtime. And what you pointed to before, Kalia, we also need to slow down in work. But that sounds so unpopular or so alien to most organizations. What? You're promoting the company, the team to slow down? But I can honestly say, I don't know about you two, my career, when I got my team slowed down and reflective, guess what? They did their best work. So, but it sounds maybe so counterintuitive to, I guess, some people, right?
It does. But, I was talking to a VP yesterday, and she had a major decision to make. And she said, I'm going to go to Mexico for a week, and I'll let you know when I get back. And so it's like, and people, it has, there have been studies recently that people that take more vacations are actually more productive. So, the facts, the scientific facts are, right, that if you slow down, you can actually speed up. So
that's what happened with us.
Yeah. You know what? I love that, because quite often I've heard people, CEO position, people in seniority, where they're being pressured and, they face immense pressure on a daily basis because of all of that weight of, oh my God, I've got all this responsibility for the board, for making profit, for all of these thousands of people, the employees, for myself. And it often looks like you need to be pressured into making a snap decision just like that. I love what you said there, because sometimes these high stakes decisions don't require you to rush into them. They require you, to go into deep reflection, even if there's a bit of a cost implication while people wait for that decision. I'd rather have that done under reflection than pressure, and I think it's good what you said there, because any leaders that can say, okay, I'm feeling pressure, you know what, I'm going to reflect on that. I know you want it right now, and it's not that I'm not taking responsibility, but I'm going to get back to you. I'm going to take a break, and you're going to have to trust me. And I think that's real leadership, right?
See,
there.
leading back to the trust, communication, and chilling out. So.
Yeah, have some fun.
But
yeah, I mean, we are doing a whole life. We're doing something in order to, what we want is to feel happy, relaxed, and enjoy life. And then we're actually doing everything opposite. And where do we actually break that circle? So yeah, I think it was an interesting conversation today.
Yeah. So I guess in summary, you get better work when you allow yourself to be instead of do.
Yeah. And if you need to really make some big decisions, just slow down.
Yeah, because if I'm just putting the shoe on the other, if I'm representing the thousands of employees and I heard that my CEO was being reflective because it is such a huge decision that could impact, thousands of people's livelihoods. I don't know about you two, but I'd rather have them being reflective and not being pressured into making that decision versus being pushed and pulled and, pushed into a corner and just blindly deciding something there and then on the spot.
And that reflects, what leaders do. It reflects, it trickles down. So if leader is under pressure, the team will be under pressure, and that pressure cascades down. And if you are selling something, it will show it, your customers will feel that.
And it goes back to leading by example, right? If you show your organization, again, through communication transparency, hey, we're having a turbulent time, as where most companies are right now, but I've got your back. I'm going to make the right decision, and I'm just letting you know that I'm going through a process of doing it. So don't worry, it's happening. That's leadership right there. Versus, sadly, what we see quite often these days is because of fear, because they are feeling immense pressure, they're just not communicating anything. And then the problem is the thousands of employees are making it up in their head. They're making up the worst, scary, worst case scenarios, when actually it might not be that bad. Just because it is challenging doesn't mean to say that, with reflection, with that, with less pressure on the table, you're more likely to make a decision that's going to increase the longevity and the profitability of the company, right?
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us live today for this episode of Unlearning Labels. And share your comments below if you watch this on the replay, and share this with your team and have this discussion. Reflect on, is it better for you to slow down or to keep pressurizing each other? Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.